Ladies, gentlemen, and destined ones of all ages, as we settle in for the long haul for what is looking to be a relatively long but enjoyable journey with Black Myth Wukong, enjoyers of games of this style may be looking for just a touch of guidance on how to proceed. This game has quite the deep skill tree, as well as quite impactful both weapons and armor, with unique effects and set bonuses. And while obviously once you get further into the game, you'll become more than comfortable enough to actually come up with your own cool combinations of gear and synergies with the skill tree to make your own proper builds, I thought maybe now in the early days it would be a good time to essentially just run through the basic sort of skills within the tree that are really good regardless of what your general playstyle is going to be, the things that you should invest in regardless of what you want, but then also we'll dive into the two strongest examples of relatively full builds that you can lean heavily into within Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 to really sort of just accelerate your power growth and feel like you're beating the game with your choices on top of just with pure raw timing and skill. That said, first things first, the generally useful skill tree options, and I would be remiss if I didn't start this by really deeply trying to emphasize that stamina is incredibly important in this game, and so the utility nodes on here that are things like sprinting or dodging consumes less stamina, charged heavies consume less stamina, or just the maximum stamina increase stat gain in general, all that kind of stuff is actually really quite good. In this game, the stamina bar is pretty limiting in the amount that it has without upgrades, and while you can do things like attack even when you don't have stamina, it makes you significantly weaker when you do so. It means that you cannot chain dodge, it means that you can't do proper combo finishers or parries or interactions like that, and importantly it means that every hit you do while in that state has lower damage and stagger as well. So basically just pay a lot more attention and give a lot more love to your stamina bar than you probably are right now, and you'll just find your experience to get a lot more enjoyable overall. And the skill tree is honestly a great way to augment that. Similar things to actually go for are things like the health upgrade, the maximum health increase. You don't like upgrade a health stat like you do in other Souls-like games, but there is this little multi-input max health node at one spot of your skill tree that you can shove multiple points into even early in the game to create a larger sense of comfort in the early boss fights. For some people, the best way to play these types of games is to go full glass cannon mode, make the fight as short as possible by having really high damage so that you only have to be perfect for 30 to 60 seconds per boss at most, and then it feels slick as hell when you get the kill. For others, the best way to go is go full tank mode. Let yourself slowly and gradually learn the attacks without dying in a way that lets you just take far more of these attacks on you than someone with worse defensive stats could, and just slowly chip away at the enemy. I'm not going to tell you how you should play, I'm not going to tell you what's the right way, I'm just going to point you at the skill tree options that will help you do what you want. That said, some other great general use ones are things like composure. You need to spend 4 points to unlock this by getting the connecting earlier nodes in the stamina trees, but this makes it so that you can maintain your point in the light attack combo when doing dodges or perfect dodges as well. On the surface that may sound a little bit minimal, a little bit normal or niche perhaps, but the later parts of the light attack combo are where it really does the bulk of its damage and focus buildup, and you will be doing a lot of light attack combos pretty much regardless of what your overall goals are. So let's say normal combat without this happening, without any spells up, is going to be something like 2 light attacks, then you have to dodge an enemy, then 2 light attacks, and then you have to dodge again. If you do that same thing but with this node, some of those light attacks would be combo finishers or later stage combo attacks rather than just the really piddly little starter attacks, and that just lets you do way more damage within smaller openings on bosses, and the bosses will get stronger and faster attack combos as you go. To go along with that, the whole left side of the martial arts tree in the skill tree boosts light attack combos and combo finishers as well. These synergize really well together with that for a good reason, with that previous bonus while also being applicable to pretty much any build and to any staff stance, especially if you want to build around these concepts. On that note then, let's talk upgrades in the staff stance tree in general. Healing per focus point spent is a really fantastically high value node. This lets you heal smaller bits of chip damage with pure offense, and more ranks is more healing per point spent. This lets you extend out to take longer fights without relying on your healing gourd. It lets you play much more aggressively because you can get healing back with your offense, and it's just a really strong upgrade with 3 ranks to it available too. As well, the right side of the smash stance tree gives you access to spending focus mid-combo to initiate a parry. The timing on this isn't overly tight, but it does require you to have recently finished a light attack animation and still have stamina in your tank. If you do that and you have a focus point available, then you can just completely ignore the damage of an enemy attack if you time it right, which is when your weapon glows red like so, and you can even build this further to skip parts of the light attack combo that follow this, or have a follow-up focus point spending heavy too with even further massive damage and stagger. These upgrades are locked to smash stance though, but even without being the focus of your damage, they are super useful to have as tools, and you should absolutely consider grabbing these to make the game just a little bit more comfortable and to have as options for different boss movesets. Then past that, we have the different stances in general. They tend to have their own feel. Smash stance is essentially pure offense personified. Pillar stance is better for group combat, dealing with lots of smaller enemies, or if there are any ground-based attacks that you can actually hop over with this stance. Thrust stance is essentially the most defensive of the options. It has the longest range, it has inherent defense in the moveset by letting you press the heavy button mid-light attack combo to push off and dodge backwards, but you can also re-engage. It has a lot of mobility too. It has interesting crit scaling mechanics with the multi-hit attack later on in the upgrade tree if you lean into it, and honestly, none of these trees is flat out necessarily the best. It depends on your playstyle and the rest of your setup, though I would say that the thrust stance is the easiest one to actually get good at. There's nothing wrong with mixing them and switching it up mid-fight either if you want to. It's just sort of hard to do in early game with limited points to spend. That said, let's talk about two really coherent and fantastic early game builds, and we'll do them in a sort of progression order because one is just earlier than the other. The first one then is Sprint, Hit, and Run, and this is mostly based around the Pilgrim armor set. This becomes craftable once you reach the Guanyin Temple Shrine. You can run to this super quickly from the first shrine that you unlock manually in the game. You will turn into a cicada, follow the path forward and right, where you can fully run past and avoid the big stone-headed optional boss, the Wandering Wight, and you can come back for him later. Then you can follow this path, defeat the wolf enemies at the end of it, and you'll be led into the courtyard of this village with the shrine. Once here, you actually unlock armor crafting as a function, and the first set that you will have unlocked is the Pilgrim set, and you should have the crafting materials to make this already by this point, as they're all very, very basic. This is a set bonus that increases your sprint speed at 2 pieces equipped, but at 4 pieces equipped gives you a quickly upward scaling attack buff the longer that you are sprinting, which basically means the attack or attacks that quickly follow the end of your sprint will do significantly increased damage. The helmet also gives you the unique effect itself of letting you use your healing gourd while you are sprinting, which is a pretty nice bit of utility. But the majority of the rest of our choices are now going to be built around that sprint attacking and how to lean into the concept of essentially the hit and run. Sprint around, run in, hit the boss, run out, reset, and repeat. The main thing that you want to pair this with then is the left side path down the smash stance tree within the skill tree. The first upgrade here lets you build up a charged heavy attack while you are sprinting, and this is especially notable because outside of introduction cutscenes on first attempts, most if not all bosses will let you whack them with a fully charged sprint heavy for a massive chunk of damage at the start of the fight that also staggers them out of their opening move. The next upgrade increases the damage reduction that you get when trading with charged heavy attacks, as they do give you a little bit of hyper armor so that you can actually trade damage into these, and Smashing Force is the next upgrade, also gives increased damage with charged heavy attacks in Smash Stance in general. This is our main combo, and we can supplement that with things like health gain on focus speed, stamina reduction when using charged heavies, increasing charge speed. You get the idea. This setup is just fully based around the power of that sprinting attack buff and maximizing everything that we can in our early setup around that. There aren't necessarily any weapons to match this early on. There's not really any weapons that you can actually get very early on in Chapter 1 than you can a little bit later. Both of the early weapon unlocks are part of the main story, and you generally just want to upgrade to the one that you can access with a higher attack stat at any time, honestly. At least until later options, of course. The other main build setup then is based around the bronze armor set with the Evil Crasher set bonus. The 2 set deals additional damage upon crashing an enemy's immobilization. This is what happens when you use the immobilize spell and then attack the enemy afterwards. If you build up enough damage during this duration, the immobilize will shatter and end a bit early. You'll notice this from the sound effect that plays, and this is called crashing the immobilize. The 4 set bonus makes it massively reduce the cooldown when crashing an immobilization, and this seems to reduce the cooldown of immobilize by a significant amount. The base cooldown of the spell is 50 seconds. It goes down to around 30 seconds with this interaction occurring. Then the unique effect of the glove specifically makes it so a light attack done after triggering Evanescence, which is an alt rock band from the early... Oh, wait, wrong one. This is just a skill tree thing that we'll be getting to in a moment. As for crafting the bronze armor set, you unlock the ability to do so after defeating the Black Wind King boss in Chapter 1 that you'll do as part of the main progress, but you don't get the materials until the beginning of Chapter 2, at least not the full set. Specifically, you can get up to 4 silk, which are the required material that you need 6 of, from the secret boss in Chapter 1. as well as from buying some at the shrine located in the secret boss area too. For anyone looking at how to do that, it's all in our video on Chapter 1 Secrets that was released yesterday on the channel if you want to check it out. As for the rest of the silk that you need, right at the second shrine of Chapter 2, Village Entrance, you unlock the ability to purchase more silk, and there is also an optional boss that you can find from here by dropping down in the ditch beside the shrine and following it to the right where you will meet a Foxman. Behind him is the frog boss that drops silk on defeat, and then you will definitely have more than enough for the full armor set. As for how to to pair this further through the skill tree, a lot of this actually comes from somewhere pretty obvious for the armor, which is the Immobilize upgrade tree, but the special part of this is just how goddamn well it functions. Most of this game is bosses, and Immobilize as a spell is meant to give you basically a free combo opening on a boss as a base. What this armor set does is increase the damage of each of those openings, but then also provide more frequent uses of it through the cooldown reduction. With skills then, you can increase the damage dealt to immobilized enemies, and Evanescence increases the immobilization duration when applied just before an attack hits. This also increases the incoming damage for the enemy when you do this significantly. This basically turns the immobilized spell into an extended parry with tons of reward if you time it right, but also tons of risk if you don't because of the really long cooldown, and you can get smacked out of it if you use it improperly. This is also the effect that is boosted by our glove specifically to increase the damage further, is this sort of timing effect. Then there are further upgrades as well, like storing a debuff on enemies when you hit them while they're immobilized that makes the next immobilize on them last longer than normal. This stacks up really effectively throughout multiple uses, which will happen in longer boss fights, especially with the cooldown reduction on immobilize that you get from the armor sets. Then there is also easy prey as an upgrade to just let you catch immobilized enemies from further away with your opening attack. Past that, the other ways of diving into this further are things like the full left side path of the martial arts skill tree, which we mentioned earlier. This offers tons of light attack and combo finisher bonuses, and most of your use of the immobilize spell will generally just be a strong long chain of your light attacks into the finisher. Otherwise, this can work with literally any of the three stances that you prefer. Thrust stance lets you play a bit more guarded and careful in between the immobilizes, which is an option, or you can go hard smash style and just go for big thwacks in between your moments of free damage. For both of these, if you aren't big on using spirits, I highly recommend the Wandering Wight spirit early on. You get this from the mini-boss of the same name that we passed by a while earlier in the video that I pointed out, and while this active use effect of this is a short range, like really short range, damaging headbutt with large stagger, the main reason that you would put this on is just the passive effect that is always going on of just giving you 20 bonus defense. The defense of the Pilgrim set is 40 for reference, so it literally is a 50% increase from that, and that is a massive increase for the early stages of the game that you can get this if you're able to beat the boss. That just about does it for today then, everyone. Just a sort of guide to how to build strong fundamentals and a strong, well, foundation in your skill tree under any more specific or niche build choices that you want to make, and then a couple of just really strong early build options that are easy and cheap to actually make into to help you reach really high power by the beginning of chapter 2 even, if not earlier than that. And the idea being that we did 2 builds with somewhat opposing playstyles so that you have some variation to choose to as well. Choose between what you want, and you can just always make whatever you want to play instead of that, of course, too. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.